A SWAT negotiator walks onto Walnut Canyon Bridge to talk a criminal who thinks 3 moves ahead and never comes home. For 24 years, the city learns to live with the silence until 2 hunters find something hanging from a cottonwood in the dry riverbed. What they discover rewinds the clock and tugs every loose thread. October 15, 1984. Flagstaff woke up with a thin taste of rain and dust. Behind the police station, in a narrow service alley that smelled of coffee grounds and oil, Ethan Rook stood with his hands open, palms forward, like he always taught rookies to do when a barrel was watching them. Ray Garza faced him with finger gun, jaw tilted, trying not to grin. "Hand where I can see him," Ray said. "See?" "Crystal," Ethan answered. Calm voice, even breaths. He stepped sideways, slow, never breaking eye contact. "Your name is Pete. You're scared I'll say the wrong thing." Ray holstered the finger, then took a matchbook from his pocket. A blue one. Blue Lark, stamped in silver. He made a show of flipping it open. "You keep stealing souvenirs," Ethan said. "I collect them." "It's culture," Ray said. "Also free toothpicks." They ran the drill again. Ethan coached the air, coaching himself. 1. Keep the person human. 2. Lower the room. 3. Give them a door that isn't a window. And the anchor. "Nobody dies today," Ray finished, drawing out like a prayer and a joke. Ethan smiled. He carried a coin the way others carried a cross. A 1978 quarter, drilled through the top. He rolled it across his knuckles, the metal clicking softly. The hole was a breathing trick. One more place to put his focus when panic wanted it. "Movie at 9? Ray asked as they walked toward the back entrance. "If Lauren picks something with actual dialogue. She's 8 months along and still out reading the city," Ray said. "You'll love whatever she picks." Inside, the station hummed and snapped. Phones, typewriters, boots, people saying the same words every day and still finding ways to sound tired. Ethan hung his vest on a chair and rinsed his hands. He could hear his wife's morning soundtrack in his head. The clack of a recipe box, 3x5 cards shuffling, titles and colors. She organized life like a librarian indexed the world. He drove home for lunch because he liked the quiet it carried. The sky was thin and bright. The old cottonwood in their yard gave the house its only real shade. Lauren met him at the door, a little out of breath, one hand on her belly, the other clutching a stack of index cards bound with a rubber band. "2 things," she said. "We're having soup tonight, and we are finally going to a 9 o'clock movie that is not explosions and helicopters." "I'm a negotiator," he said. "I can negotiate us into something French." She raised an eyebrow in a way that made negotiation unnecessary. He kissed her forehead. She smelled like laundry and pencil shavings. He put the coin on the counter, spun it, caught it. She watched it wobble. "Do you do that when people shout at you?" she asked. "Only when they need me to be the still one," he said. The phone rang mid-soup. Not the house line. The car radio under a towel in his bag, tuned to a number only a handful of people knew. It buzzed with a tiny coded knock. Ethan's spine knew the sound before his mind did. He stepped into the hallway and answered. "Rook." A voice, low and patient, like it had all the time in the world. "You're going to tell me your name, then you're going to mirror mine, and then you'll say you understand. Save us time and skip the theater." "Malachi," Ethan said. The name came out like a card turned face up. "Good. We respect each other's intelligence. I respect your record. I respect your coin trick. I even respect your anchor phrase." The man chuckled, but without warmth. "You said it into a microphone once. A friend of mine collects tapes the way your friend collects matchbooks. What do you want?" "Proof you can listen without an audience." Walnut Canyon Bridge. "Dusk. Alone," Malachi said. "No rifle 2 ridges away. No rookie with an itchy curiosity. If you come with ghosts, I give you silence. If you come in good faith, I give you something you've been trying to name." "Who's the hostage, Malachi?" "The kind you can't see," the man said. "The kind you carry." Click. Ethan stood in the doorway long enough for the soup to cool. He set the radio down and looked at Lauren. She read his face the way she read everything else. Fast. "Is it him?" she asked. "It's him." She put a card on top of the stack. It was orange. She hated orange. "Promise me to film at 9. Promise me I am not going to be the woman in the aisle by herself." "I promise," he said. He meant it as hard as he could. Back at the station, Ray bristled. "Alone? He's pushing you off the board." "He wants to see if the board is real," Ethan said. "I show up with circus. He kills his radio and we get nothing." Ray tossed a matchbook up and caught it. "We go together. I hang back. Minimum eyes. You talk, but if he breathes wrong, I move." Ethan spread a map. "We treat it like a refinery leak. You stay on the overlook above the north anchorage. I'll take the east access path. Code word is copper. If something smells wrong, I say copper twice and you pull the plug." Ray nodded. "And the door you give him?" "A way out that doesn't get him killed and doesn't make us liars," Ethan said. "He wants to be seen as the smartest in the room." "Fine. I'll let the room shrink until it's just a choice." He wrote on the back of his hand like he always did before he dealt with a crisis. First names of the people most likely to get hurt. Today he wrote, Lauren. He underlined it. He wanted the world to know where his voice would aim. The sun tipped toward gold as they drove. Desert scrub leaned to the wind. The old trestle in the distance looked like a rib cage. Walnut Canyon Bridge cut a clean line over a throat of rock. A little drizzle ticked across the windshield and then was gone. Ray parked on the gravel turnout north of the span and put binoculars on a blanket. He checked his rifle but kept the safety on. Copper, copper, and I come down like cavalry. Cavalry spooks horses, Ethan said. Come down like weather. Ray snorted. Weather doesn't carry cuffs. Ethan took his vest, his radio, nothing more. He walked the path down to the bridge with his palms out, not because anyone could see it yet, but because ritual protects you when facts can't. On the far side, thunder pretended to be important and then changed its mind. Somewhere far off, a train put its long voice into the air and the canyon folded it back. At mid-span, he stopped, set his feet at an angle that let him pivot, and spoke into the wind like it could carry meaning. "Malachi, it's Rook. No one dies today." Static answered and then a small, clean tone, like a glass tapped with a spoon. Ethan's coin clicked between his fingers once, twice, and he put away because he didn't want to need it. He wanted to be enough. 2 feet forward, the voice said from nowhere, "Turn left. Let me see your right ear." "Strange request," Ethan said. "Ears don't lie the way eyes do," Malachi said. "And you're not alone." "I'm alone," Ethan said. He stayed still. "Your friend is on the hill with a good view," Malachi said, almost with admiration. "He keeps matches from bars. Tell him to keep his fingers still." Ethan spoke into his collar. "Ray, stay put. We're talking." "Like hell," Ray whispered. "He's got eyes on you, maybe more." "Stay put," Ethan repeated. "Copper is the signal, not your heartbeat." A car rolled on the far end of the bridge, slow and smooth. It had no plates. Headlights flicked once, then died. The shape settled by the rail, idling, a quiet animal. Ethan watched the front wheel. It didn't creep. The radio hissed and then thinned to a thread. "Let's negotiate," Ethan said. "Let's," Malachi answered. The voice was closer now and farther away. Both. "You believe truth is a door. I believe truth is a window. You can see it. You just can't pass through." "Then give me a handle," Ethan said. "Tell me who I'm saving. If I say your wife, you'll tell me what you always tell men like me, that I'm not the one who gets to say her name." "So I won't," Malachi said. "Instead, I'll say your city." Ethan weighed the sentence and set aside. "You picked the bridge because it narrows choices. You picked us because it narrows sight. What narrows you? I am already narrow, Malachi said, and for a second his voice sounded tired. Step closer to the rail. Ethan moved one step. Rain returned for 3 seconds, dotting the asphalt, then left. He could smell creosote, far and thin. He could feel Ray on the hill like a line drawn between 2 points. He could feel the baby in Lauren's belly kick against his promise. Copper. Ethan said softly, testing the taste of the word, not sending it. What was that? Malachi asked. My coin. Ethan lied. The radio snapped once, a tiny bone breaking. Ethan looked up. The unmarked car's headlights flashed again and went dark, like a blink. Talk to me about doors. Ethan said, You call. I come alone. That buys you honesty. Will you give back? A location, Malachi said. Something you can stand on. Where? Don't turn, Malachi said. Don't look for me. Close your eyes. Ethan didn't. He softened his focus instead, letting edges go dull, letting sounds come forward. The distant train called again, shorter now. Then a long note that found the metal of the bridge and made a hum under his boots. He let his breath settle into that hum. His coin wanted his hand. He didn't give it. Then the radio died. Not a fade. A cut. A knife on a rope. Ray! Ethan said. Nothing. Malachi? Silence poured in like water. On the hill, Ray cursed. The world below him had gone quiet in a way that meant something had shifted, a pressure change in a room. He snatched the binoculars and scanned. The unmarked car sat like a hell breath. No driver. No passenger. No one in the mirrors. He grabbed a rifle, then stopped himself. Set down, took the binoculars again. Weather, not cavalry, he muttered, mocking his own promise. He ran anyway. Gravel slid, scrubbed toward his pants. He took the north stairs 2 at a time. Rook! He shouted once and heard it shred against the canyon. He reached the east abutment and saw tire tracks ghosting the wet. Fresh, deep on the right, shallow on the left, like a heavy load had been moved. Ethan! He reached the mid-span, chest heaving, and found the place where his friend had been, found the emptiness there, and then found the thing the world had decided to leave him. The coin. It lay at the curb, a bright lip in the gray, rain making a dark halo around it. Ray picked it up. It was warm from the road, cold from the air. He turned it and saw the hole, and felt the hole land somewhere under his ribs. The radio at his shoulder clicked once. A single dry, sharp sound, like someone closing a little door. Then only static, thin and endless. November 2008. The riverbed of Walnut had become a road of pale stones and old bottles. The waterline of memory drawn on the cottonwoods. 2 hunters, Wayne and Milo, followed a trail of quail that wasn't there and talked about nothing important. The air was cold enough to keep their breath close. Milo stopped first. Wayne, he said, his voice tipped sideways. A rope hung from a thick branch of an old cottonwood. On the rope, a body that was no longer a body. A full, sun-brown skeleton swung in a slow arc. Over the chest, buckled tight, a black tactical vest with a big white word. SWAT. On the left of the chest, a patch. Rook. They stared until staring made their eyes burn. Then Wayne used his thumb to dial, like he was calling his father. Detective Nora Bennett reached the scene as the first light shifted from silver to ordinary day. She wore her hair back, her badge inside her coat, and a mind already making boxes. Deputy Javi Montoya came behind her with evidence kits and a pack of playing cards in his breast pocket, as if that had anything to do with the dead. Please tell me I'm looking at a training prop, Javi said, then sneezed. Dust or cold or nerves, it didn't matter. He fished a card from his pocket and flicked it across his knuckles, a habit that calmed him and sometimes calmed other people. Gloves. Nora said, not looking at the card. Perimeter first. Photograph the rope, the knots, the shoe prints. If there are shoes. There weren't shoes. There weren't much of anything. Bone, rope, vest. A crow complained once and left. The cottonwood kept its opinion. The text worked quiet. Javi found a matchbook in a vest pouch. Blue cover. Silver stamp. Blue lark. He held it up in a bag. Bar nostalgia, he said. Ray used to. Nora cut him off with a glance. She'd already made a connection. Another pouch held a microcassette, label peeled. No markings. The little plastic door on the recorder snapped shut like a mouth. Word ran ahead of the radio. By noon, yellow tape caught wind like a flag, and a small crowd gathered on the rim of the dry riverbed. Among them, a man with gray in his beard and a face set like a locked drawer, Ray Garza. He stood with his hands on the tape, as if it could take some of the weight from his shoulders. "Detective," he said when Nora approached. "Sergeant Garza," she answered, using the rank he'd left with. She watched his eyes go to the vest and then flinch away. "We'll need a statement." "You'll get everything I have," Ray said, which is not much and too much. He stared past her at the tree, at the rope, at the letters Rook. He reached into his pocket and touched something he didn't pull out. Nora guessed what it was. A coin with a hole. Grief was a private tool. People held it the way they had learned to. They tried Lauren Pierce at home. She didn't come to the site. She hadn't come to any scene in 24 years. Lauren opened the door as far as the chain would allow and listened to Nora explain. Her hair had more white than gray. Her living room looked like a quiet library. 3x5 cards in neat stacks, spines of books turned like faces. A kettle went on without her noticing. "Is it him?" she asked from behind the chain. "We don't know," Nora said. "We found a vest with his name, and a microcassette." At the word microcassette, another step sounded in the house. A woman in her 20s came from the hallway with a small field recorder hung by a strap and a pair of headphones around her neck. Cass Rook, eyes like her father's, Nora thought. But that was unfair. Everyone heard Ghosts in the Living. "I work sound at the station," Cass said, as if that explained why she was already taking off the headphones and offering help. "Mom, please." Lauren shut the door, unhooked the chain, opened it again. The kettle began to whisper. She didn't ask them to sit. Back at the lab, the cassette lay in a petri dish of light, while a tech coke sound from old tape. Javi, bored and wired, tried to make a card vanish and failed twice, then succeeded and sneezed again. "I'm allergic to history," he said. Nora unfolded a crossword and filled 3 squares in pen, then put away. She watched the waveform crawl across the screen. Static. A voice. Not a confession. A conversation. Clipped at the edges, like someone had taped over another recording and then changed their mind. "You're scared I'll say the wrong thing." One voice said, calm, measured. "Truth is a window." Another voice answered, lower, patient. "You can see it." The room went very small. Even the machines leaned in. "Bring up the bed," Nora told the tech. The sound under the voices. They did. Wind, metal hum, and then, clear as a hand tapping your shoulder, the pattern. 2 long horn blasts. 1 short. 1 long. The room blinked. Cass looked at the speaker like it had told a joke only she got. "That isn't a yard," she said. "Rail yards have different horns." Constant clatter. "This is a crossing." But the echo listened. She rewound, played it again, closed her eyes. "It flips back fast. That's a narrow space. Cannon, not open field." Javi tilted his head. "You do this for fun?" "I do this to pay rent," Cass said. "A beat. And because that voice is shaped like someone I've heard my whole life." Nora wrote echo equals canyon and horn. 2L minus 1S minus 1L on her pad. Then drew a box and put the word where inside. The case, which had slept like a bear, woke up roaring. Reporters set up outside the station. Old photos of Ethan in uniform filled the evening news. The easy stance, the eyes that told angry men, take a breath. Headlines called him the hero negotiator. The tree by the riverbed became a landmark overnight. With the roar came the other part. Suspects. 3 lanes, Nora told Javi while they stood by a vending machine that dispensed snacks like it owed you money. 1, Ray Garza, last man to see Ethan. Devoted to him. Gilk and Curdle. 2, Chief Harold Dwyer. He was a lieutenant in 84, ran strategy. Hated negotiators. Loves control. 3, Malachi Quinn. Ghost since the 90s. Intelligence on legs. No body. No record of burial. No proof he's not watching daytime TV in some quiet town. Javi tossed a peanut in the air and caught it. I'm a 4, random psycho with a uniform fetish. Leave room for 5, Nora said. We don't know yet. Alibis piled up like sand that didn't quite hold shape. Dwyer swore he'd been in the operations center the entire night Ethan disappeared. There was a log with his initials. His office now smelled like lemon cleaner and victory. He sat behind a desk that could have been a small boat and laced his fingers. You're making a circus out of an old pain, detective, he said. Let the lab work. Don't chase ghosts. And stay away from that family, unless you have to. They've had enough. Sir, Nora said, and let him hear the drop of ice under the word. We'll talk to whoever grief kept. Ray's alibi was neat. A briefing with Lieutenant Dwyer, signed time, tidy. Ray looked at the paper like it belonged to a stranger. We had briefings every night, he said. Doesn't mean we had truth. At Lauren's kitchen table, over 2 mugs that cooled untouched, Nora asked a question she didn't want to ask. After Ethan vanished, she said, Did anyone from the department give you money? Lauren looked at the 3x5 cards instead of Nora. Yes, she said. Envelopes. No explanations. From colleagues. She lifted a shoulder. People were kind and they were careful. Sometimes those are the same thing. Do you still have any of the envelopes? Nora asked. I have the rubber bands, Lauren said. Paper doesn't like me. I tidy until it goes away. Cass set the field recorder on the table with a small click. Mom kept the notes that mattered, she said softly. The orange ones. Nora built timelines. She built a map with 3 colors. Red for 1984, blue for the discovery today, black for anything that locked those 2 together. She wrote silence at the top of the board because the case felt like that, a shape made by what wasn't said. The lab called for pickup. They cleaned the tape as best as old plastic could be cleaned. There were also fibers from a vest and dirt under the Velcro that would go to another machine in another room. Everything moved slow, and then all at once. Press wants a quote, Javi said. Something human, but not human enough to ruin us. Say we're listening, Nora answered. And mean it. Night came early. They all ended up in the same hallway without planning it. Nora, Javi with a new box of tissues, Ray with his hand in his jacket and his jaw shut, Lauren with a card in her pocket she kept touching, Cass with the headphones around her neck like a guard. The hall outside the medical examiner's office was cold in that special government way, where the air is new every minute and never warm enough. The floor made everyone walk softer. A vending machine hummed. A clock did what clocks do. The phone at the clerk's desk rang. A small sound in a big room. The clerk answered, listened, nodded, then passed a receiver to Nora without meeting her eyes. Nora took the call. She listened. She said, thank you. She put the receiver down with care, as if it could break. She looked at the group, at the way each face had made a different kind of brace. It isn't Ethan, she said. Ray's shoulders went down, but nothing got lighter. Lauren's hand found the card and crushed it once. Javi stopped in mid-sneeze, which had to be a record. Cass did not look surprised. She just looked at the floor, then at the ceiling, like the room had 2 answers, and neither was kind. The sentence, it isn't Ethan, didn't end anything. It cut the problem in 2. Nora took a new board and drew a line down the middle. On the left, she wrote homicide, early 90s. On the right, staging recent. She wrote the word tree across both halves and underlined it twice. We got 2 crimes were in the same vest, she told Javi, Ray, and Cass. Figure out who the skeleton is, we get a motive for the hanging. Figure out who hung it, and when we get a path back to 1984. Ray stood with his hands in his pockets, smaller than he'd ever let himself look. Someone used his name. He said someone wanted that. He didn't say for what. The lab called him back in. Under the Velcro of the SWAT vest, the tech had teased out tiny gray grains that glinted under light. Not road dust, he said. This is cinerite. Volcanic cinder, weathered. There's a quarry 30 minutes east, Red Mesa. That's full of it. It's in the pores of this vest. A bridge doesn't do that. So our tree borrowed its dirt from a quarry, Nora said. She wrote Red Mesa underwear. Cass set the clean dub of the microcassette on the table, like it was a teacup. Can I? She asked the tech. He made a face, then nodded. She pressed play and closed her eyes. The voices were the same as before, clipped and tense. Under them, the world breathed in a pattern. 2 longs, she said softly. 1 short, 1 long. That's a railroad crossing code, not a yard signal. Yards use hand signals and bells and chaos. Crossings speak to drivers. And the echo is tight. She tapped the speaker with 1 finger. That wall you hear? It's rock. Closed rock. How close? Javi asked. Close enough that you smell dust when a horn hits. Cass said. A narrow canyon. Like a cut. A place carved, not grown. She looked up. Like a quarry throat. Ray swallowed once. Walnut Canyon hums like that, he said. But the crossing that was killed in 86. They ripped the arms out and left the posts. Exactly, Cass said. A crossing that stopped crying in 86, but the tape remembers it. Nora drew a thin box linking crossing, 1986, to Red Mesa. A lattice was forming, the shape of something that might be truth when you step back. Ray stood still for a long breath, then moved toward Nora like a man stepping onto ice he knew wouldn't hold. There's something I should have told you the first day, he said. Ethan and I, we didn't trust that every tape we made would keep breathing inside the building. Sometimes people higher up have big scissors. Scissors? Javi asked. Policy, Ray said. Orders. Hands at tidy. We kept backups off-site. A locker at the Pine Mall. We called it the Bluebird Box because the blue matchbooks from the Lark fit in the slot. Number 19. If there's anything Ethan would have found after anything, it would be there. Nora looked at him for a long second. Not angry. Measuring. Why now? She asked. Because the tree isn't Ethan, Ray said. If someone hung his name to get our attention, maybe he wanted us to open the box. Or maybe someone else wanted to make sure we never did. Either way, it's time. The Pine Mall was the kind of place where the fountain had been turned off, but no one could decide whether to remove it. The security office smelled like old coffee and aerosol lemon. The guard on duty had a magazine open to a crossword he'd barely started. We'd like access to a locker, Nora said, showing her badge. Policy says warrant, the guard said. Policy also says public safety, Nora answered. I'll take responsibility. Javi leaned on the counter, palmed a card, and made it appear under the guard's crossword as if it had always been there. Tell you what, he said, easy. You say yes. I show you how to make queens out of air. You say no. You get to watch me practice until your shift ends. The guard sighed the sigh of someone who understood he had already lost a small battle. Make it quick, he said, and buzzed them through. Locker 19 sat in the middle row. Third column, beige like all the others. Ray's hands hovered before he let Nora take the lead. She used a thin tool that had never been in any manual and coaxed the lock open with the kind of patience you earn by breaking the wrong thing once. Inside, an envelope addressing careful block letters to CR, a blue Lark matchbook with 2 sticks left, and a single 3x5 index card the color of a traffic cone. Nora handed the envelope to Cass. Her fingers shook, not a lot, enough to make the paper whisper. Inside, she found a folded sheet yellowed at the edges and a coin indent where something had been set on it for years. The handwriting was Ethan's. She had seen scans and old reports. Lauren had shown her notes. The loops matched. If they hang my name, follow the sound of the train. E. Cass read it twice. She didn't cry. She put the note back with a care that made Javi stop, joking for a whole minute. They took the card to Lauren. It was orange. She held it the way some people hold snakes. Respect and dislike in the same grip. He hated when I used orange, she said. Said it made everything look like a warning. Did he ever talk about property seized in raids? Nora asked, gentle but direct, about things that didn't make it evidence. Lauren's mouth went thin. He didn't talk, she said. He filed. In his head. But yes, he said sometimes the department was a pocket with a hole. Money fell through. Jewelry. Cameras. Cash. All the small things people can pretend were never there. Who? Nora asked. He never said names, Lauren answered. He said systems have fingerprints. People change gloves. The next days moved like a montage you could feel in your bones. Malachi Quinn became a rumor relit. They found a room above a diner where he'd once paid cash for a month and left napkins covered in thin, tidy script. Silence is debt overdue. People forgive rain, not drought. Truth is a window. Most men prefer mirrors. They found a bartender, the Blue Lark, who remembered a man who ordered ginger ale and sat with his back to the wall and left big tips in even numbers. They found no photos, no taxes, no death. Ray spread a map on Nora's desk and put his matchbooks down like markers. We did drills here, here, and here, he said, pointing to 3 red circles around the old red Mesa Quarry. Back when the county thought they could turn it into a landfill. They didn't. Too many pockets and cuts. Too many stairs to nowhere. Cass pressed the microcassette dubbed to her ear like a seashell. This place will talk back, she said. If the tape was born there, we'll hear the same jaw on the rocks. I can match it. Tonight, Nora said. Fewer eyes. And if anyone's watching, they'll think we're just making ghosts chase ghosts. Javi sneezed. I'll bring extra tissues and fewer jokes. They went at night because secrets like night. The quarry sat like a dark stadium, the terrace walls black against a sky that didn't want to help. Old metal stairs climbed and turned, bolted into rock that had been patient long before people arrived. Stay tight, Nora said. No hero angles. If we meet anyone, we're hikers who got curious. Ray took point with a flashlight held low. Cass followed, recorder on, headphones around her neck. She listened as they moved. The scrape of boots on rust, the little ping of cooling metal near the ground, a whisper wind trying out different notes. It's right, she said softly. The echo is right. They crossed a catwalk that had no business, still holding. On the far landing, a floodlight exploded to life, turning their pupils into coins. A shot cracked and whined, chewing a bite out of railing. Another shot hit the metal strut above them and made it sing hard enough to hurt teeth. Down! Nora barked, already moving. Javi tackled Cass out of reflex and apology at the same time. Ray scanned for the source, saw only glare and shadow. The microcassette, the dub, not the original, jumped from Cass's hand when she hit the grate. It skittered, bounced once, and slid to the gap at the edge like a mouse finding a hole. They heard it hit a lower Patamar, a small brittle sound becoming distance. Footsteps. Boots, not hurrying, not rushing, coming along the catwalk behind the floodlight. Calm as someone who knew exactly where every boat lived. Hands. A voice called from the white glare, neither high nor low. Let's see your right ears. Ray's hand found the rail. Javi swallowed a sneeze and failed. Cass reached for the recorder, for the wire, for anything that felt like control. Nora measured the space between breaths and decided on 3. The floodlight burned white enough to erase faces. The first shot took a bite from the railing. The second made the stairwell sing like a tuning fork. Metal rang in their teeth. Move! Nora said, already pulling Cass low. Ray swung his light down, not up. Light paints targets, and found the dark on the catwalk, the slice of safety nobody ever notices. Javi sneezed so hard his hat tilted. Permission to trip the guy if he gets friendly? He whispered. Granted, Nora said. Boots came, steady. A shape cut through the glare, more silhouette than man. Ray shifted to give Nora space. The figure stepped through light to shadow, gun up, patient. Javi stepped out with both hands high and said, "Excuse me," like he was passing in a movie theater, and hooked his foot behind the man's ankle. The fall wasn't far, but it was loud. Gun skittered, screamed metal against grate. Javi sneezed again. "I'm allergic to ambush," he said, eyes wide. The man scrambled, grabbed for his pistol, then ran, not toward them but away, into a stairwell that sank 2 levels and bent behind a wall of rust. Ray pointed his light, but didn't chase. Nora listened to the rhythm of boots fading. "He knows this place," she said. "Let him have his pride. We came for the bones of the lie." When the light finally popped and died, Javi's hip had met a breaker box in the scuffle. The quarries settled back into honest dark. Their eyes learned again. The wind returned to whisper through broken guardrails. They moved inward along a catwalk that had rusted into lace. Cass kept a recorder close, catching the quarry's breath. Ray swept his beam across a section of wall and stopped. "There," he said, voice gone thin in the big space. A corroded panel, bolted to rock, wore a sign that had once said danger and now said anger. Along the edge, mortar had bulged and cracked. Someone had tried to make permanent what didn't belong. Nora tested a corner. The panel flexed and squealed. "Help me," she told Ray. Ray pulled a matchbook, blue lark, and struck one. He warmed the spine of his pocket knife until it smoked, then slid the blade under the mortar. The heat softened the old glue. The smell was a burned, bitter thing. "Careful," Cass said, because someone had to say it. "Always," Nora answered. They levered slow. Bolt side. The panel gave with a tear that felt like a secret giving up. Behind it, set straight into the quarry's red-brown heart, sat a small safe, its back literally cemented into stone, front face pitted with years. "Someone didn't want this carried off," Ray said. "Or did," Nora said, "but only by the right hands." The safe had a dial that stuck at odd numbers and a keyhole chewed by time. Nora took a breath, laid her ear to the metal, and turned like she was listening to a story. Ray warmed the blade again, melted wax in the seam, eased it. The last tumbler fell home with a sound like a lid settling. It opened. Inside, 3 microcassettes in paper sleeves, dates written in block letters, 84, 85, 90, a stack of Polaroids bound by a rubber band turned amber, and under them, a 3x5 card the color of a traffic cone. Cass took the top tape, and the air in the stairwell changed. She didn't press play. She didn't need to. The handwriting on the label was a voice enough. E. Rook. Nora slid the Polaroids out. The first was Dwyer, 24 years younger, jaw hard, hat brim low, standing in the edge of a parking lot shadow. The second, Malachi Quinn in profile, head tilted the way men listen when they don't plan to answer. The third, both men in the same frame, midnight purple light flipping their faces into masks. A fourth, the hood of a car, cash counted on it by hands you could not see past the wrists. Ray swore under his breath, not loud, and reached for the wall like a man who needed it to be there. Nora found a small envelope at the back. Inside, a strip of paper with a single line in Ethan's hand. "If I fall, hang another. They can't stand silence." For a long second, nobody talked. The quarry hummed in the places rocks hum. Cass cleared her throat. "Give me 90 seconds, she said. She ran a short cable from the microcassette to her field recorder, hit record, and watched the tape turn. The sound that came out was a voice pulled from a decade. Ethan, steady, laying out a pattern of extortion. Cash and goods taken in raids, things that never made evidence. Names were thin, maybe on purpose. Methods were fat. They're cutting pockets into the system, he said on tape. They call it efficiency. It looks like theft. Nora's phone wobbled in her hand. Javi glanced. Ballistics. He put it on speaker. Detective, the lab tech said. Tinny, we've got a match on a 93 slug from a body found near Red Mesa. The striations line up with Sergeant Garza's service pistol from that period. It's not perfect. Nothing is, but it's strong. 2% error model. Ray didn't flinch. He went gray. Javi said no in the littlest voice. Nora took the call off speaker. Email me the overlays, she said. She ended the call and stared at the screen while the quarry tried to read her face. Bad. Ray asked. Convenient, Nora said. She opened the images. Old bullet, new test slug. Lines like topographic maps. This barrel's too clean, she said. Look here. Your training slug from 92 had a chipped ridge at 9 o'clock. It shows up in every shot you fired after that. Should be a signature. It's missing on the 93 bullet, which means either the ridge healed, which steel doesn't, or someone swapped your barrel in the armory and fired a fresh one to make the match. The log will say routine maintenance. The timing will line up like a lie. Ray exhaled. It wasn't relief. It was air returning to a place it had left. What if you're wrong? He asked. Because good men ask that even when they're drowning. Then we'll prove it the slow way, Nora said. But my money's on a frame. Headlights cut the dark at the quarry mouth, then red and blue stacked on top of white, and washed the walls in police light. Uniforms came down the stairs with the confidence of people who believed the stairs were theirs. Chief Dwyer arrived in a coat that thought it was a uniform. His watch caught light, the same old thing he wound when he lied. A paper rode in his hand like a flag. Detective Bennett, he called. Stand down. Chain of custody. This scene is mine. Hand over all materials. Nora looked at him, then passed him to the stairs. Behind the second rank of uniforms stood Lauren, drawn and steady, jacket pulled tight, hair caught back. Cass was at her elbow. They must have driven in on the Fisher calls flying between phones and people. Lauren's eyes found Dwyer and didn't blink. You brought an audience, Nora said. I brought order, Dwyer said, holding out the warrant. Unless you want to do this on TV. Javi tried for a smile. We could, Chief. You want your left side or your right. It's your good angle that keeps secrets. Dwyer didn't laugh. He never did when he needed to. Lauren stepped to the side, so the light caught the Polaroids in Nora's hand. Orange, she said softly, not anyone. You always used orange seals when you took things from my house. Said it meant priority. I hated it. Dwyer's jaw flexed. Mrs. Pierce, he said, an old rank in his tone. Go home. No, Lauren said. Just that. Nora weighed the warrant like it might be heavier than paper. Then she nodded once. The smallest nod that still counted. By the book, she said. She handed over the tapes, the envelope with Ethan's line, the Polaroids, all into evidence bags that glowed the color Lauren hated. But she had already done what the chapter required. While Javi argued policy and Ray watched hands, Cass had sat on the step and quietly finished a clean clone of the most important tape. She clicked stop and slid the recorder's memory card into her pocket with fingers that had practiced for years. Outside, the night had collected press like the quarry collected echoes. Vans with masts, cameras on sticks, faces that could turn any sentence into a crawl of words under a picture of grief. Someone had called someone who had called everyone. Dwyer tried to shepherd them to cars, to offices, to halls where doors closed and air went dry. Nora did the thing he did not expect. She walked the microphones. Javi looked like he might sneeze. He didn't. Ray stood at her shoulder, not speaking for once. Lauren and Cass stayed just behind the tape, close enough to hear everything. Detective Bennett, a reporter shouted, "Is it Ethan Rook?" "We're waiting on more results," Nora said, voice steady enough to build a house on. We have found materials that open new angles, some from 1984, some from later. We need the community to help us align memory with fact. You're making a spectacle, Dwyer said behind his teeth. I'm making a map, Nora said into the lights. She lifted her chin so the bridge of her nose looked like certainty. Tomorrow night, we will recreate the conditions of October 15th, 1984 at Walnut Canyon Bridge. Same time, same light, same vantage points. Anyone who saw anything then, or who has remembered anything since, come. We will listen. We will collect new statements on site. We owe the truth more than a file room. Cameras clicked like insects. The crowd shifted. The quarry took the sound and turned it into a small, careful hum. Behind her, Dwyer looked at his watch like it might lie for him. He wound it, a neat, precise motion of fingers that had practiced. Detective, he said, warning and promise mixed. Be careful what you perform. Nora kept her eyes on the press. We will, she said. The next night, the bridge looked like a stage someone built out of yellow tape and borrowed light. Portable towers threw cones across the asphalt. Camera crews plugged into generators that coughed and settled. Curious faces lined the guardrails, bundled in coats, sharing coffee from paper cups the way people share courage. Lauren and Cass came hand in hand. Lauren's step had that careful, librarian stillness. Everything in order even when nothing was. Cass wore her headphones around her neck, her field recorder on a strap, a spare tape tucked in her sleeve like a charm. Ray took the long way around, circling the margins. The gravel turnout, the north overlook, the shoulder where tire tracks fade into scrub. He wasn't pacing. He was building a fence with his eyes. Nora ran the recreation like a director with a stopwatch. She set cones where Ethan had stood and where a phantom Malachi would have leaned. An unmarked impound sedan was rolled into position to mimic the car from '84. She walked the angles with a laser pointer, marking sight lines that mattered and ones that only felt like they should. If you were here, she told the cameras, you didn't see this. If you were there, you could have seen everything and still misunderstood it. Javi moved through it all with a shotgun mic on a boom and a windscreen like a gray animal. He collected ambience the way kids collect fireflies, gentle, attentive, delighted by small light. He kept sneezing, dust or nerves or the fact that the canyon stored every scent like a museum. If the murderer is allergic to me, he whispered to Cass, we have motive. Sure, Cass said, smiling in spite of herself. We're going to ask the place to talk. Nora lifted her voice just enough to carry. We are here to listen to Flagstaff, to Walnut Canyon, to what time and stone remember. She pointed to the lower catwalk, the maintenance walkway that ran under the bridge like a narrow second thought. Half our ears will be down there in a minute. Chief Dwyer stood near the command car with his coat buttoned to his throat. He wound his watch once, a small, neat motion to practice fingers. The camera lights made his face flatter than a face should be. He looked like a man about to file a complaint against the weather. Nora ignored him for the moment and set the opening tableau. She stood where Ethan had stood. Hands open, she said quietly, more to herself in the crowd. She adjusted her shoulders until they found the angle that let a person pivot. To the press, she said, the point isn't to solve a case on television. It's to jog memory with geography. People remember better when their feet are where their eyes were. Cass closed her eyes as instructed. Everyone quiet, she asked, palm up. The hum of generators dimmed. The murmurs faded into that particular event's silence. Crowd noise folded tight. Wind moved through the trusses and came back with notes in it. The metal sang a little. From far away but not far enough, a train put its voice into the air. Two longs, one short, one long. The sound walked into the bridge, hit the belly of the structure, and bounced off downward, not back toward the highway, but toward the lower walkway where shadows thinned into a narrow run of grating and bolts. There, Cass whispered, eyes still closed, the way you point in church. The echo is below, not above. It's thinner, faster. The tape wasn't hearing the road. It was hearing the underside. Ray, on the rim, stopped walking. His hand went to the rail. Without thinking, he felt the vibration come up through metal the way you feel someone's voice through their chest when they sing too close. Nora turned finally to Dwyer. "Chief," she said, professional, crisp, "your watch was repaired the week of October 15th, 1984. The shop on Depot Road closed in 89, but their books say Dwyer, rush job, with a time stamp for the evening of the disappearance. That shop sat beside the deactivated crossing, the one you said you never went near." Dwyer's mouth made a straight line and stayed there. "This is a spectacle," he said. "It risks the chain of custody," Nora finished. "We're not touching evidence. We're touching memory." She stepped closer, her voice private enough to pass among the first row and still be heard by him. "Your alibi lives in a room with a window to that crossing. If you were there, you heard the same horn the tape hears. If you weren't, you hired your watch out of geography." He wound the watch again. The tick sounded louder than it should, like a prop on a small stage. Down the line, an old couple in matching parkas watched the setup with the ease of people who came to everything the town offered. The woman nudged the man. "Isn't that the gentleman with the donuts?" she asked. "The one who brings the box every other Friday? Calls everyone by their last names like we're in school?" "The one with the library bag." The man said he returns a fat novel for whoever forgets. Says he hates overdue fees on principle. "What do they call him?" she asked. "Mr. Lark," he said, "like the bird. Sweet man. Keeps to himself. Smells like coffee." They weren't talking to an officer. They were talking to each other the way people do when the past and present shake hands without asking. But the words traveled. Javi caught them on the edge of his microphone. Nora's pencil paused. Lauren, 2 steps back from the tape, shivered like someone had walked over the place where her spine keeps secrets. Because she remembered notes that had come in the mail over years. Not many, not often. Little pages with patient handwriting that said things like, "Eat before you worry, and silence is for resting, not for losing." No signature. Just a small drawn Lark in the corner. Dwyer moved to cut the power, in the way bosses do without touching a switch. "Enough," he said. "We're done here. The department will release a statement." Nora lifted a hand, calm as a judge. "We're not done. We've barely said hello." She turned to the crowd. "If anyone has photos from the nights around October 15th, 1984, birthday parties, traffic views, a sunset you liked, bring them to the table by the cruiser. The background is a hero of old cases. From the edge of the gathered faces, a man in a postal jacket older than the jacket should be stepped to the tape. He had the look of someone who had outlived 3 kinds of rules and liked the 4th. A mailbag hung at his side, scuffed leather polish by honest years. He cleared his throat in a polite way. "Miss Rook?" he asked, looking at Cass. "CR? That's you." Cass blinked. "Yes," she said cautiously. "I was told," the man said, "to deliver this to CR if I ever saw lights on this bridge at night and crowd. Told not to hurry. Told not to forget." He brought out a brown box, the paper gone soft with time, the corners bowed, an old postmark stamped in purple, 1994, and a handwritten label done with a steady hand. "Who told you?" Dwyer snapped. The man lifted a shoulder in a universal shrug of postmen everywhere. "A neighbor when I was on a different route," he said. "Moved away. Nice tipper." He looked at Cass again. "You'll want a sign." Cass carefully opened the box on the hood of the impound sedan, revealing a quarter with a hole through it and a folded photocopy of the bridge plan. A bold red X was marked on the line, representing the lower walkway. Lauren let out a wordless sound, and Ray's jaw tightened. When Javi asked what it was, Cass touched the coin, unfolded the map, and studied it intently before whispering, "He never left." She explained that the X marked the spot directly beneath their feet. Turning the map to Nora, Cass pointed toward the graded walkway under the bridge. Ray moved toward the access stairs, and Nora, after a brief pause, ordered, "Units 2 and 3, we're going below." as Dwyer stood nearby, his watch ticking and cameras capturing every moment. They went down, boots on rungs, palms on cold steel, breath catching the way breath does when ground is above you. The lower walkway ran like a scar along the belly of the bridge. Grating, bolts, gussets, a narrow handrail that trusted you to behave. Above them, cameras blinked and murmurs turned into one long hush. Below them, the canyon kept its own counsel. Nora went first with her small beam held low, not to blind anyone, only to give edges names. Ray followed, then Javi with the boom mic folded against his chest, then Cass with the field recorder, its red light a tiny heart. Chief Dwyer stood at the top, landing like a man who had brought a leash and found a wolf. The map in Cass's hand showed a red X on a line that matched this walkway exactly. She counted bolts, ribs, a pattern of rust like freckles on skin. There, she said quietly, pointing to a gusset plate. 2 sheets of steel pinched together with a seam that looked wrong to anyone who loved seams. Along the edge, a bead of compound had been drawn and sanded to look like age. It wasn't age. Ray thumbed a match from his blue Lark book, shielded it with his palm, warmed a pocket blade until it smoked. Same trick, different wall, he muttered, and slid the blade into the seam. The fake age gave way. A small section lifted with a sticky pop to reveal a cavity behind the joint, a tin compartment barely deeper than a paperback, wrapped in waxcloth and wired in place with neat, old hands. Nora clipped the wire, eased the bundle out, broke the wax with thumbnail. Inside, a microcassette labeled in block letters E, Rook/last, 3 news clippings. One about a 1993 workplace accident near the county armory, one about a missing young man named Sean Dwyer, and one about the closure of the Depot Road watch shop, plus a 3x5 orange card with a single sentence. Silence is a tool. Use it or it uses you. Cass fitted the tape into her recorder with fingers that didn't shake until they had to. She pressed play. The voice that came out had sand in it and miles. Ethan, older, drier, but the same weight he used when men with guns forgot their names. If you found this, Ethan said, it means you listened to the stone first. Good. The stone won't lie for me. Air moved along the walkway. Above, a camera flash went off, a small ghost of lightning. Malachi Quinn, Ethan continued, was not my enemy. He was federal. He came to bleed me of names. I gave him the shape of a thing instead, a system dressed as policy. We called it efficiency. It was theft. We took cash that wasn't ours. We called missing evidence a clerical error. We called fear training aid. We called all of that good leadership. No names yet, just a frame. I met with Malachi on this bridge because the room upstairs had too many doors. I told Ray I'd be alone because I wanted to be alone with truth, not men. Then I saw the net, not Malachi's, Dwyer's. The meeting upstairs was a stage to make me loud. Loud men die messy. Ethan paused long enough for the canyon to speak. A low metal hum. So I left the room, he said softly. I walked out of my life. I became the person the city already believed in without seeing. A quiet man with a bag of donuts and a library card and a habit of returning things other people lost. I signed for deliveries nobody else wanted to sign for. I paid fees I didn't owe. I wrote small notes when the world got hard. People called me Mr. Lark. It wasn't a disguise. It was a job no one could fire me from. Cass glanced at Lauren up on the deck. Even from below, you could see Lauren's grip on the railing and the way her mouth opened and closed, not with words but with something older. Ethan's voice found stone again. The tree by the river is a theater, he said. The body is not mine. It belongs to Sean Dwyer. He came to his uncle with photos and words he couldn't afford to understand. He wanted to bargain with a man who doesn't bargain. He died in a fight in '93 that was later called a slip. His bones were hidden under cinder where the county wouldn't dig. The vest with my name was put on him years later, when the clock needed a bell. If you are hearing me, it means the bell rang. Javi looked at Nora. Her face didn't change, but you could feel something in the line of her shoulders that might one day be called satisfaction. Ethan went on, "If I could have done this in the light, I would have, but fear owns doors. I spent 24 years moving it from my side to yours. If you arrest the right man, fear will go to jail for a while. If you tell the story true, fear will stay there longer." The tape clicked. A breath. A last line, like a hand on a shoulder. "Cass," Ethan said, "I negotiated with fear. If you can hear me, it means it moves sides." The recorder rolled dead air for 3 seconds and stopped. Up on the top deck, Chief Dwyer's voice came down like sleet. "You're done," he said. His shoes started on the ladder, then stopped, then started again. When his head came into view, his pistol came with it. "Hands where I can see them," he said. His watch ticked too fast. Nora didn't raise her hand high. She raised them enough. "Chief," she said, conversational, "chain of custody doesn't extend to murder weapons you haven't signed out yet. Walk away from the box," he said. "Walk away from my bridge." "It was never your bridge," Ray said, stepping so that the space between Dwyer and Nora had a him-shaped problem in it. The coin in his pocket felt like heat. Dwyer moved sideways along the narrow walkway. Gun out, eyes on Nora, then Ray, then Cass. He took another step and found rust under boot instead of paint. The railing there bowed an inch, which is all it takes to make some men think about falling. He chose not to think. He ran. Nora went after him. Ray went without deciding to. Javi came last, because someone had to think of falling. Also because he couldn't stop sneezing. The lower catwalk turned a corner and narrowed more. Dwyer looked back, saw Ray too close, and aimed. The shot went wide, chewed a latch that held a maintenance panel in place. The panel jumped and slammed back. The latch hung half-caught, a loose thing makeable. "Javi," Nora said, breath even. "Left side. That latch." Javi had a card in his fingers without knowing he did. He flicked it. Snap. The way he had 1,000 times over bars and desks. And the card slid into the gap and kicked the latch home. The panel sprung up like a knee. Dwyer's boot hit the edge, lost the argument with physics, and his arms windmilled for a second too long for dignity. Ray caught his jacket and the rail in the same handful. "Weather," he grunted, remembering an old line, and wrench him in. The gun clanged to the grating, skittered, stopped at Cass's foot. She put a sneaker on it. Dwyer tried to say something about respect and got as far as "you" before Nora turned him, put his cheek to the cold steel, and cuffed him. The watch kept ticking like it didn't know about paper or steel or time having a shape. After a long, heavy silence, the world returned in layers. Radios crackling, voices rising, the crowd above resuming its work, and the wind settling back into itself. Back on the deck, cameras lit the scene with a brightness that flattened truth. Javi sealed the pistol in a carefully labeled bag. Ray gripped the rail with steady resolve, and Cass stepped forward to hug her mother. At Lauren's request, Cass played Ethan's final words aloud, and for a moment, no one breathed. At the crowd's edge stood Malachi Quinn, older but unmistakable, raising a small white handkerchief in quiet acknowledgement. Nora saw him, nodded once, and he nodded back, an understanding left for another day. Ray lit a match, let it flare, then extinguished it, tucking the blackened stick into the bridge. "For the lark," he murmured. The case would continue in courtrooms and paperwork, but its story had found its ending. A week later, Cass sat in a radio booth, crafting an hour of sound. Library hush, the bell of a donut shop door, the quarry's murmur at night, the strike of a match, the winding of a watch, and the horn of a train over steel and stone. She told it simply, names, dates, mistakes, and ended with, "Sometimes the bravest thing a city can do is listen to itself. Fear is loud until it isn't. My father chose a different door." When she finished, she held a recorder in the whole quarter. No magic, only weight. Outside, Walnut Canyon breathed, and the wind on the bridge answered with two long, one short, one long,